You were taught that being selfish is wrong, that to put yourself first is to be cruel, that good men are generous, giving, and self-sacrificing. You believed it. For years, you gave your time to people who didn't earn it. You lent money, attention, energy, and you told yourself it was noble. You made excuses for their disrespect. You called it kindness. You forgave betrayal and called it maturity. And what did you get in return? Silence, distance, sometimes mockery. The more you gave, the less they respected you. You thought being generous would make you loved. But in the real world, generosity without boundaries makes you invisible. People see you as a resource, not a man. You were never taught the truth. The system doesn't want you to know it, because selfish men cannot be controlled. A selfish man protects his time. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't apologize for existing. He doesn't seek approval because he doesn't need it. That's dangerous to everyone who benefits from your weakness, so they taught you to feel guilty for thinking of yourself. They turned self-interest into sin. Machiavelli saw through it. In The Prince, he writes, a man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must come to ruin among so many who are not good. Translation: if you insist on being good in a world full of users and liars, you will be destroyed. Let that sink in. You've been taught to compete by playing fair while the rest of the world is armed with knives behind their backs. You think you're being moral, but you're just being vulnerable. And in nature, the vulnerable get devoured. You're not here to be devoured. You're here to win. But first, you have to unlearn the lies. Start with this. Selflessness is not strength. It's camouflage for fear. You're afraid to say no, afraid to assert yourself, afraid that if you stop giving, they'll stop caring. And you're right, they will, because the caring was never real. It was based on what they could extract. People don't love you for your sacrifices. They love you for your power, or they fear you for it. Either way, they stay in line. That's how hierarchy works. You think being a good person means being soft, but Machiavelli warns it is much safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Not bad or evil feared. That means respected. That means you hold something they want, and you can take it away at any time. The man who is feared has leverage. The man who is only loved gets betrayed the moment he stops pleasing others. That's you. If you're still stuck in the old way of thinking, look around. At work, the ones who rise aren't always the most talented. They're the ones who understand leverage. They speak less, but their words hit harder. They know how to walk away. They don't panic when they're disliked. In fact, they expect it, because being unliked is often the cost of not being used. You, on the other hand, still want to be liked. That's why you over-explain. That's why you compromise when you shouldn't. That's why you answer messages right away, even when it drains your focus. You're still operating under the illusion that being selfless makes you valuable. It doesn't. Being useful makes you valuable. Being strategic makes you respected. Being rare makes you powerful. And you cannot be any of those things if you're constantly available, constantly apologizing, constantly giving without calculating. This is the first lesson in power. Stop being a free resource. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you chip away at your own presence. Every time you give without measure, you make your attention worthless. Selfishness is not about cruelty. It's about clarity. It's about understanding the cost of every interaction and refusing to bleed for free. But the world won't applaud you for this. They'll call you cold, arrogant, distant. Let them. They only say that because your boundaries stop them from using you. You want to be admired, then stop trying to be understood. You want to be respected, then accept that you'll be misunderstood. You don't need their approval. You need power. And that begins with mastering this one thing, your attention. Attention is currency. It's energy. And most men waste it. They let others interrupt them constantly. They engage in meaningless conversations. They give validation freely. They explain themselves to people who aren't even listening. That's not noble. That's weak, because a man who cannot control his attention will never control his outcome. Machiavelli would laugh at your distractions. He would see you as a man already conquered not by an army, but by 100 invisible hands pulling at your mind. You want to build power, then protect your time like a fortress. Say no, without guilt. Make silence your default. Be unavailable. Let people wonder. A man who's always reachable is a man without direction. A man who always responds is a man who doesn't know what matters. Selfishness forces you to choose. It forces you to prioritize. And that's how strength is born, not from doing more, but from doing less with greater precision. You've been asleep. Now you wake up. The lie of selflessness ends here. From this point forward, your time is not a gift. It is a weapon, and you decide when to draw it. You think connection builds loyalty, that if you stay close, stay present, stay warm, they'll appreciate you. They'll reciprocate. They'll stay true. But the truth is colder than that. The more available you are, the more they pull away. The more emotionally transparent you become, the less they feel urgency to keep you. Human nature is not wired for fairness. It's wired for calculation, for tension, for contrast. And the harsh truth, they only value you when they sense they could lose you. Not because people are evil, because they're animals wired for scarcity, drawn to what they don't fully have. You think constant affection will win their loyalty. But Machiavelli warns otherwise. Men are ungrateful, fickle, simulators and deceivers, avoiders of danger, eager to gain. They want the feeling of gain, not stability, not gratitude, not devotion. That's why you get ghosted after being too nice. That's why people take you for granted when you're always there. That's why women lose attraction the moment you drop your edge. Because you made yourself common. The man who's always available is predictable, and the predictable man cannot hold attention. Distance, on the other hand, creates pressure. It creates ambiguity, mystery, status. You don't even need to speak. Silence does the talking. Silence says you don't have access to me unless you earn it. That's power, and it's why distance, not warmth, creates desire. It's true in love. It's true in leadership. It's true in life. Think about the bosses, mentors, or figures you've respected most. They weren't the ones who flooded you with attention. They were the ones who were measured, who didn't explain everything, who held their time like gold. Why? Because distance signals hierarchy. And hierarchy is how humans organize loyalty. You can't lead by being everyone's friend. You can't inspire by being endlessly accessible. And you can't be respected if you're emotionally open to everyone. But you've been told the opposite your whole life. They told you to be vulnerable, to share your truth, to always communicate. And what happened? You exposed your strategy. You lost your leverage. You handed out your secrets like candy, thinking honesty would build trust. It didn't. It built weakness. They used your openness to categorize you, to box you, to remove mystery. And once mystery dies, so does power. Machiavelli would call this error fatal. He wrote, "The prince must learn how not to be good, and to use this knowledge, or not use it, according to necessity. Not be good, appear good." You, on the other hand, keep revealing your intent. You speak when you should observe. You explain when you should withdraw. You apologize before anything has even happened. You've mistaken kindness for control. But in power, kindness without fear is ignored. A man who is kind and feared, that's influence. A man who is kind but never respected, that's furniture. You want to stop being background noise. Then you must introduce distance and hold it, even when they pull, especially when they cry. Because neediness is not love, it's possession. And when you submit to possession, you become a slave to their emotions. Let them feel uncertain. Let them ask why you're quiet. Let them wonder if you've changed. That's when the power dynamic shifts. You don't chase. You don't clarify. You don't comfort. You watch. You let the space speak for you. The man who controls distance controls emotion. Because emotion grows in absence, not presence. That's why the moment you stop responding, they panic. They ask questions. They recall every detail. They imagine you've moved on, even if you've done nothing at all. Silence becomes a sword. Distance becomes discipline. But to master it, you must first kill your fear of being disliked. You must detach your identity from being good. You must stop thinking love is owed to you for being loyal. Love is never owed. Respect is never guaranteed. You either command it or you lose it. And to command it, you must separate from the crowd. Machiavelli understood this deeply. That rulers must appear compassionate, but act with ruthlessness behind closed doors. That their true strength was not in what they showed, but in what they withheld. You must do the same. You are not building a personality. You are building a boundary. People can either rise to meet it or disappear, but you never lower it. Distance is not punishment, it's filtration. It reveals who values your presence enough to earn it, and more importantly, it keeps you in control. You don't need to explain why you're gone. You don't need to justify your silence. Your absence is the proof of your standards. And standards are the only real source of strength in a world that will devour anything soft. So stand back. Don't call. Don't chase. Don't beg. Let your distance work for you. If they care, they'll reach. If they don't, they never mattered. Either way, you win. You think betrayal is rare. You think most people have good intentions. You believe that if you just give enough attention, loyalty, patience, they'll eventually give it back. But they don't. Not because they're evil, because they're opportunistic. They take what's offered, they mirror what you project, and they act loyal until loyalty costs them something. Then they disappear. What you call betrayal, they call adjustment. They didn't change. You just finally saw who they were when you stopped being useful. That's the price of selflessness exposure to emotional theft. And make no mistake, your emotions are currency. They can be stolen, drained, manipulated, not through violence, through access. When you're emotionally available to everyone, you become defenseless. You let people in who haven't proven anything. You give energy to stories that don't deserve a second glance. You invest in people whose only loyalty is to their mood. You've seen it. You've felt it. The friend who calls only when he's in trouble and vanishes when you need help. The woman who texts for validation and loses interest the moment you pull away. The coworker who flatters you until you're no longer useful. They all do the same thing, take your emotional attention, then leave you lighter, emptier, weaker, because you didn't charge a price. You gave it freely. You believed that openness was strength. But Machiavelli wrote, "Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony." Translation, people forget pain. They remember loss of power. If you don't guard your emotional power, they will treat it as disposable. That's what being selfish prevents. Selfishness is not cruelty. It's emotional discipline. It's filtering who gets your presence, who gets your story, who gets your attention, who gets your reaction. And it's a choice you must make every single day. Because every day, someone will test your boundary. They'll ask for a piece of you. And if you give it away for free, they'll come back for more until nothing is left. You'll wake up one day wondering why you're anxious, burnt out, bitter, and the answer will be simple. You spent everything, every emotion, every ounce of focus, every calm thought traded away in microtransactions to people who gave you nothing in return. This is how men are emotionally robbed, not by one big betrayal, but by 1,000 small leeches. Each conversation you didn't want to have but said yes to anyway. Each favor you granted just to keep the peace. Each apology you made to avoid discomfort. Each secret you shared too early, too easily. And the worst part, you trained them to see you this way. They learned that you don't protect yourself, that you're emotionally open for business, 24/7. That's not kindness. That's poor strategy. Powerful men don't operate like this. They're not cruel, but they are calculated. They know that emotional energy is finite, that trust is not a gift, it's a weapon. That silence is stronger than any explanation. You still think silence is rude, that boundaries make you arrogant, that selfishness makes you one of them. But Machiavelli didn't warn about selfish men. He warned about naive ones. The world belongs to those who understand exchange. If your emotions are free, they will be exploited. So protect them. Don't respond to every message. Don't explain every shift in mood. Don't let people guilt you for protecting your peace. You owe them nothing. You don't need to justify the walls you build. You need to enforce them. Because power isn't about being known. It's about being inaccessible. Inaccessibility is control, and control is survival. You're not here to bleed for others. You're here to build something: focus, power, presence. And that cannot coexist with emotional openness. You want a sharp mind? Then cut the cord on dead conversations. You want to lead? Then stop asking for understanding. You want respect? Then start ignoring what doesn't deserve your attention. There is no power in reacting. The power is in restraint. You don't tell them how you feel. You let them wonder. You don't tell them what you want. You let them offer. You don't tell them where they stand. You let them earn clarity. That's emotional strategy. That's psychological warfare without ever raising your voice. And it begins with being selfish in the purest sense. You protect your time. You protect your mood. You protect your focus. You don't give without calculation. You don't speak without precision. And you never, ever give people a map to control you emotionally. If they want to access your mind, let them work for it. Because once you've mastered emotional selfishness, something strange happens. The world starts chasing you. Not because you're impressive, but because you're scarce. And scarcity, in human psychology, equals value. You're no longer a mirror. You become the fire, and fire doesn't explain itself. It just burns. You were trained to fear the word no, to think it was too harsh, too final, too selfish. So you softened it. You said maybe when you meant never. You said I'll think about it to avoid conflict. You said sure while your stomach turned, while your schedule collapsed, while your self-respect crumbled. You didn't say no, because deep down, you wanted to be liked. That's the trap. The desire to be liked makes you weak, and weak men cannot say no. They stall, they explain, they over-apologize. They give in not because it's right, but because they want to be seen as agreeable. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes without alignment, you pay a price, and it always costs more than you think. Time, energy, attention, focus, reputation. You're paying in all directions, and for what? To avoid a frown, to delay someone else's discomfort. That's not kindness, that's fear. That's survival instinct masquerading as morality. And predators, yes. Emotional predators can smell it. Machiavelli warned a man who tries to do good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. You want to stay good, then prepare to be used. You want to survive, then learn to say no without guilt, without explanation, without emotion. Because the moment you do, something shifts. The people around you start recalibrating. They stop assuming your availability. They stop disrespecting your time. They stop throwing emotional debris in your direction. Why? Because they now see you as structured. And structure creates distance. And distance creates value. That's what Machiavellian strategy is built on: selective rejection. You don't react emotionally. You don't justify. You don't raise your voice. You simply deny access, quietly, firmly, without noise. When someone asks for a favor you don't want to give, say no. When someone tries to pull you into drama, say no. When someone demands an answer before you're ready, say no. Not "I'm sorry, I'm just so busy." Not "maybe another time." Not "I would, but just no. That doesn't work for me." That's it. No emotional leakage, no overcompensation, no fake smiles, just truth. The truth is this: the man who can say no owns himself. Because most people can't. They outsource their time to anyone who asks. They drain themselves trying to be agreeable, and they wonder why they feel resentful, anxious, invisible. It's because they never said no when it mattered. You think saying no will make you seem cold. Good. Cold is strong. Cold means you're no longer influenced by approval. Cold means your decisions are not made through guilt or pressure. Cold means your mind is yours again. That's power. You must understand no is not just a word. It's a wall, a filter, a signal. It tells the world I am not available for everything. I don't seek to please. I control the terms. And once you become the man who says no with calm certainty, you become dangerous, because nothing can be dangled in front of you anymore. You don't jump for attention. You don't bend for comfort. You don't break for pressure. You see things clearly. You watch offers come and go, and you measure them not by emotion, but by outcome. That's strategy. That's Machiavellian. Because saying no isn't about being rude. It's about protecting your throne, your time, your mind, your priorities. And a king who cannot say no is not a king at all. He's a puppet ruled by the demands of the crowd. You've played that role long enough. Now you step back. You let silence answer for you. You let absence communicate your boundary. You let the discomfort of rejection teach them where your line is. And when you do speak, you speak with gravity. No over-explaining, no softening, no selling, just truth, delivered with restraint. Because the world respects precision, and the most precise word in power is no. Use it wisely. Use it often. Use it without fear. Because every no you speak is a yes to your control. In the end, power is not loud. It's not performative. It's not charismatic. It's not theatrical. It's silent. The most dangerous men you'll ever meet are the quiet ones. Not because they lack emotion, but because they no longer leak it. They've killed the part of themselves that needed validation. They've buried the instinct to defend. And they've made one strategic decision to be selfish with their presence. Because in a world obsessed with noise, silence becomes sacred. It becomes feared. You've spent most of your life explaining yourself, why you're upset, why you said no, why you want space, why you've changed. But every explanation is a gift to people who didn't earn it. Every time you defend yourself emotionally, you lower your value. You make yourself accessible, predictable, controllable. And the moment they can predict you, they stop respecting you. Machiavelli knew this. He wrote, "The vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances, and the world consists chiefly of the vulgar." You want to be respected by the world. Don't give it your emotions. Give it your image, but keep your reality to yourself. Let them see what you choose to show. Not your pain, not your insecurity, not your reasoning, just your result. That's how the elite move. They don't announce change, they become it. They don't post about silence, they disappear into it. They don't defend who they are. They let their absence burn louder than any presence. You are still addicted to being understood, still chasing the feeling of being seen, still craving applause. But applause is noise, and noise is distraction. The man who builds true power detaches from performance. He doesn't need to win arguments. He doesn't need to be liked. He doesn't need to be known. He just needs to decide, selfishly, strategically, silently. He chooses where to go, who to allow, and what to respond to. Everything else ignored. And that's what makes him untouchable. People try to provoke him, but he doesn't react. They try to guilt him, but he doesn't explain. They try to flatter him, but he doesn't chase. Because his reality is internal. He doesn't need the world to mirror it. This is the highest form of control, to be unmoved. It's not easy. It means walking away from everything that used to validate you. The likes, the texts, the applause, the attention, the affection. It means becoming a ghost in a room full of noise. But in that silence, you become sharp. You see what others miss. You catch manipulations before they form. You watch emotions rise and let them die inside you before they ever leave your mouth. And in that state, no one owns you. Not her attention, not their approval, not their pressure. You become your own mirror. You speak when necessary. You walk when disrespected. You disappear when drained, not with drama, but with precision. You don't react. You respond once, then you vanish, and they'll feel it, because your silence is no longer emptiness. It's a message. You don't owe them your time. You don't owe them your softness. You don't owe them your story. You only owe yourself one thing: control. Cold, quiet, unshakable control. That's what selfishness gives you. That's what silence sustains. And that's what makes you a man worth fearing, not for your violence, but for your absence. You're not trying to be a god, you're just trying to be untouchable. And that begins the moment you decide, I no longer explain, I no longer prove, I no longer seek. I simply am, and what I am is mine.